Kinder Morgan proposes to ship 590,000 barrels of oil a day from Alberta to foreign markets, increasing tanker traffic to 400 a year through the Burrard Inlet, the Salish Sea, and the Buenafuca Strait. The carbon emissions from the project to the eventual from the production to the eventual consumption of the oil would be 126 million tonnes each year. For comparison, this is roughly twice the level of BC's current emissions. In January this year, BC granted an environmental certificate to the project, and Premier Clark announced a special deal for Kinder Morgan to pay BC $25 to $50 million a year. But opponents continue to reject the project, saying the risk of harm from oil spills and increased tanker traffic are too great, that its added carbon emissions are incompatible with any action on climate change, and that it's simply not good for BC. The Union of BC Indian Chiefs opposes the project, as do the majority of First Nations along the pipeline route. The cities of Victoria, Vancouver and Burnaby and other municipalities also oppose. A nice simple question. Do you support the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion Project? And if so, why? If not, what will you do to stop it? And first of all, I'm going to ask Gary to respond to that.
So our leader, John Horgan, wrote the NEB less than 2 years ago, formally opposing the project for 3 reasons. First of all, the risks to British Columbia greatly outweigh the benefits. Secondly, the proponents of the project do not take responsibility for all the risks they are imposing on British Columbia. Not only is there not enough money in the so-called oil spill fund to cover the costs of the spill itself, there's no dollars whatsoever to compensate fisheries users, First Nations, tourism and recreation operations. So the proponents aren't taking responsibility for the risks they're imposing on us. And thirdly, the process itself was completely corrupted. The interveners were not even able to cross-examine the proponent. The provincial government, and we canvassed this in the legislature, had about 80 questions, very good questions actually, that they asked the proponent. None of them were answered. And yet, the Premier now all of a sudden says, well, they've met our 5 conditions and everything's fine, and we're going to have world-class oil spill response, which at best will get 10 to 15% of the bitumen, which sinks. It's not like refined fuel products. So for all those reasons, we oppose Kinder Morgan. John Horgan has said we will do everything in our power, including, for example, things like provincial permitting on projects like this. We'll do everything in our power to stop it.
Thank you. Josh.
This is a pretty simple one. It all rolls down to property rates. But there's a couple of problems in the preamble here where it says that the majority of First Nations along the pipeline route are opposed to this. The fact of the matter is that of the 6 First Nations that are along the pipeline route, 4 have assigned agreements with Kinder Morgan to allow the pipeline through their property rights, through their property. And over 40 First Nations bands have agreed as well. So if you are opposed to having pipelines forced upon you, if you are opposed to having people dictate what First Nations can do with their land when they say no, you cannot be in favor of opposing Natives and First Nations land when they say yes. There's this very local and vocal opposition to these pipelines, but the fact of the matter is the pipeline's already there. Pipelines are safer than trains. Libertarians would not force a pipeline on anybody. We would not expropriate lands. If Natives or the First Nations bands say no, then the pipeline doesn't go through that land. But if the First Nations say yes, if they want that economic benefit for their bands, we have no right as white people in Victoria to tell people in Kelowna or Kamloops that, oh, well, we said no, so even though you say yes, Native bands, our no is more powerful than your yes. Property rights are the solutions. not just saying no or just saying yes. It's win-win when you rely on property rights. It's win-lose when you say yes or no, because not all natives agree on this issue. That's a false statement. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andy next.
I absolutely do not support the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion Project, and neither does the Green Party. As a chosen councillor, we've met with the Western Canada Marine Response Corporation, which is the agency that's responsible for cleaning up oil spills on the coast a couple of times. Their current response times are inadequate, which might not matter anyway because the diluted bitumen will probably sink to the bottom of the ocean and coat all the marine life, so no response time is possible. They've promised to better their response times with new boats and equipment if the pipeline is approved, which I think is appalling and perhaps a reflection of the fact that 50.9% of the shares of the Western Canada Marine Response Corporation are owned by Kinder Morgan. Now, according to a 2014 report by SFU, the building of the pipeline, putting of the pipeline, will create 12,000 person-years of construction work in British Columbia, which is terrific. But the pipeline expansion itself will add only 50 permanent jobs, and that doesn't seem like a good trade for all the marine jobs that will be imperiled if we have a spill, for all of the orchids that will be damaged, even if we don't have a spill by a 7 times increase in tanker traffic. Moreover, we need to move to an economy that's not dependent on yesterday's fuel and yesterday's economy. We need to remember that when we approve a diluted bitumen or LNG pipeline, we're committing ourselves to that course for generations, and we have to make more intelligent decisions right now.
I have to be honest, I struggled with this, and I was incredibly surprised when Prime Minister Trudeau said, yes, we're going to twin the Kinder Morgan pipeline, because I have read the same material that these gentlemen have read. And then I read further. Oil has been exported out of the Vancouver port since 1956 without incident. The tankers that are going to carry this bitumen, and it is a 7-fold increase, that means we're going to have about 1 a day come in and out of Vancouver, has new technology. These are not the boats that we saw in the early 80s. These are not the boats that we saw in the 50s. These are double-hulled vessels with incredible navigation. And these double hulls make it incredibly difficult to beat through them and have a spill. In addition, there are international regulations and certified pilots that are certified by Transport Canada that are going to guide these vessels through the waters. The Prime Minister said that we needed to have access to this marketplace, and this is the decision that he made. The province understands, or the Premier understands, that Sherry Point, just across the border, has about 650 tankers a year go in and out. Those aren't regulated by Transport Canada. I, for one, would rather have Transport Canada and the federal government overseeing the tankers that are going to come off our coasts. I know that what the Premier could do, she did do. She drove that agenda with the federal government, and we saw commitments from them that we've never seen before, long overdue commitments. And she drove the agenda with Kinder Morgan and secured $25 to $50 million per year of the project that's going to be invested in this province in its environmental stewardship.
Thank you. Time for rebuttals. Gary.
Well, there is something else that the Premier could have done. She could have refused to support the project and said what John Morgan said, which we will do everything we can in our power to stop this project. If the project is so safe, why aren't the proponents taking responsibility for the risks that they're imposing on us? They are not doing that. Taxpayers are going to end up bearing those risks. Just to get a little further afield, rather than exporting raw oil products, raw wood products, raw products, we should be refining and processing them in Canada. We should be refining our bitumen, Alberta, in Canada to provide our own fuel security.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gorge.
40 First Nations have agreed to these projects. They've accepted cash, including our own Esquimalt Nation. On the pipeline route, 4 of the 6 First Nations have agreed. What right do any of you people here or any of our government representatives have to tell First Nations what to do? First Nations have the right to self-determination. And whether or not you like that choice, whether or not they say yes or no, it's not your choice. Property rights. Libertarians!
Even the biggest proponents of the plan of twinning don't argue that there won't be any oil spills. They simply say that they'll happen less frequently and perhaps be smaller. So everybody agrees there will be spills. Even while we're waiting for those spills to happen, marine biologists are really concerned about the effect all that additional traffic will have on orca populations.
As recently as September 7th, 2016, John Horgan, the fearless leader, as Mr. Holman would characterize him, said he could be persuaded on Kinder Morgan. I'm not convinced that the NDP has come to a firm stance on Kinder Morgan. I'm not sure which napkin they brought to this particular picnic. With respect to the orca population, I think this is an incredibly important issue. I met with the chair of the Chamber of Shipping, and we discussed the fact that they're going to decrease speed over the course of August and September and work with biologists to see if that's an impact. I think the next step for protecting that environment, and particularly the increase in noise, is making sure that BC Ferries is a part of that conversation.
Thank you very much.